December 26, 2025 marks year 4 and day 306 of the full-scale invasion. Welcome to the Daily Situation Report. Today's report shows more Ukrainian deep strikes on Russian energy and military infrastructure, major Russian air defense issues, and growing signs of Russian disintegration, and a possible Ukrainian blunder that should never have happened, absolutely under no circumstances, as well as much more. So stay tuned. During the night, there was another drone attack in Volgograd. Russian sources report that Ukrainian long-range drones struck near the Lukoil refinery, sparking a fire. There are no official details yet about damage to the facility, but the incident is part of the ongoing attacks on Russian energy infrastructure in the hinterland, which we can observe here almost every day. According to Ukrainian security authorities, the Security Service of Ukraine Alpha Special Unit has destroyed more than 500 Russian air defense systems since the beginning of the invasion, including components of the S-400, S-300, Pantsir, and Buk systems. Of course, it's no coincidence that Ukraine is releasing this today on the day of Russian air defense, but it also highlights the operational achievements of the special unit. Systematically removing Russian air defenses creates short-term, local gaps, letting Ukrainian drones and attacks reach deep into Russian rear areas. Due to their groundwork, Ukrainian drone attacks on Russian refineries and depots have occurred almost daily for nearly 4 months. The Russians alone report 142 attacks on refineries and fuel depots. We're discussing a minimum figure, and many cases go unreported, since they have often claimed that there was no damage at all, or someone only saw drone towers falling from the sky, but there was never any fire. But in retrospect, we did see large burning facilities. The success rate is about 82. Ukrainian reports state 1,264 air defense systems have been destroyed in their attacks. So we're talking about 40 just by the Alpha Special Unit, and that adds up well. Recently, I also read an article that said only a dozen units are responsible for more than half of the material Russian losses. Today marks both Russian Air Defense Forces Day and the 34th anniversary of the Soviet flag's removal from the Kremlin. That was one of my best days in 50 years. The Cold War ended, reducing the threat from the East and easing East-West tensions. It was a significant chapter in human history. The Kremlin propagandist Sladkov presented a modernized T-72 tank in the so-called Dandelion modification, as he calls it. In fact, it's a tank that's covered with a welded-together bulkhead construction and improvised metal structures. This form of modernization is less a technological adaptation and more a visible admission that regular protection and defense concepts against drones and precision munitions are lacking. When Sladkov talks about the legendary 9th Brigade, he is unintentionally documenting the state of the Russian tank troops. Improvisation replaces systematic solutions, and makeshift measures are propagandistically sold as innovation. But now the big but is in the past, and other brigades see it the same way. There, the improvisations are literally junk. Like, for example, just 2 or 3 days ago, when we saw that the Russians were using shipping containers as armor. That's junk. But the Dandelion modification actually isn't that bad, especially if you were to expand on it a bit more than what you see in the video, so that all the gaps between the meshes disappear. Because for the first time, something has been created here that allows the driver or crew to see out and still use the tank, while drones still have a hard time penetrating through here. Few videos show destroyed vehicles, especially with this setup. And if there are, it costs 3 to 4 extra drones. But if there's no armor, it's here. Russians are again using horses at the front and being targeted by Ukrainian drones. At least this time the horse managed to escape. But the shortage of vehicles, whether military or civilian, is once again clearly noticeable on the Russian side and forces them to use horses and donkeys as mounts before they have to continue on foot. Let's take a look at Yuliapole. The Russians were able to bring the eastern quarter completely under their control. In addition, there is currently heavy fighting in the center. Here's new footage of Russian assault troops 60, motorized rifle brigade seen during a tour of an abandoned command post. According to this, it is the former headquarters of the 1st Battalion of the 102nd Territorial Defense Brigade in the south of the city. On the premises, abandoned maps, a flag, official seals, data carriers, tablets, an unlocked phone, inventory-labeled laptops, and radio equipment were found. Deep State confirms the video and indicates a disorderly retreat. This is a big problem for the Ukrainians in defending the city. Such a loss of a battalion command post, along with sensitive documents and equipment, points to significant problems in leadership, situational awareness, and withdrawal organization. This is really an absolute disaster. Even if you're taken by surprise and have to evacuate the command post within a few minutes, every little kid knows that you have to destroy the documents, data carriers, and equipment immediately. There's so much important stuff on there, so much information that doesn't just concern your own unit, but also the surrounding battalions, as well as the companies of your own battalion. And now the Russians can get important data, transfers, and plans. So if that's real, it's incomprehensible that no measures were taken here to destroy the data. Russian media are reporting on the death of former Deputy Defense Minister Yuri Saduvenko. The Colonel General was considered a longtime confidant of Sergei Shoigu and was part of Russia's extended military leadership during the invasion of Ukraine. But not much of that leadership remains, as many have mysteriously died following the corruption allegations against Shoigu. He was on the sanctioned list of the United States and the United Kingdom, and like many others from his circle of confidants, was dismissed from his position in 2024. Now, at the age of 56, he is said to have died of a heart attack in Moscow. Interesting. Typical death report on the Russian side. Let's stay with dead Russian soldiers for now. The Russian military blogger Maxim Klimov admitted in a public post that the status of around 1.5 million Russian soldiers is unclear. 1.5 million. Since Christmas, the Ukrainians have reported only 1.2 million Russian soldiers unfit for combat. He's already mentioning 1.5 million Russian soldiers with unknown status. He literally said that there is a big question mark over this number, explicitly referring to soldiers who were used in costly assault attacks during the course of the war. This statement is quite remarkable because it comes from within the inner circle of propaganda. Also refers indirectly to passive issues with recording management and documentation loss, and the cover-up of the high losses. If even regime-affiliated actors are now openly talking about hundreds of thousands of soldiers whose whereabouts are unknown, then there is a major problem on the Russian side, especially when you actually want to keep such things secret. You know, the official losses on the Russian side are actually only a few thousand. According to media reports, the United States and Ukraine have already agreed on most of the framework for a possible agreement. A central element would be security guarantees modeled after Article 5, which would require ratification by the United States Senate. The biggest remaining obstacle is still considered to be the Russian demand for full control over the Donbass. Zelensky stated at the same time that the Ukrainian 20-point peace plan is 90% complete. According to him, initial drafts are already available, while the key issues, especially security guarantees and territorial arrangements, are deliberately to be resolved at the level of heads of state and government. Specifically, this means that Washington and Kiev have already moved significantly closer to each other politically. The key issues that have repeatedly caused negotiations to fail, lack of security guarantees, and Putin's territorial claims, are intentionally left unresolved. For Ukraine, this has a big advantage. If they agree to the plan, the United States already likes it anyway, and Putin continues to reject it. Even if the territorial issue is resolved in this peace plan, it just shows again that Russia has no interest in peace. And at the same time, they could use the territorial claims as a reason to reject the plan. Russian forces struck Odessa region port facilities overnight. According to Ukrainian sources, parts of the port infrastructure were damaged, including grain elevators, silos. Foreign merchant ships in the port area reportedly suffered damage as well. Information on the extent of the damage, the type of weapons used in the attack, and possible disruptions to port operations is currently only available to a limited extent. A special thanks goes, as always, to the Algo crew channel members, especially Lieutenant Colonel Renica, Robert Ziller, and Dietrich, And with that, as always, thank you for listening. Subscribe, like, comment, and see you in the next report.